Greetings, Pastor Ryder here. Today we are going to talk about the Ten Commandments. If you ever had trouble remembering the Ten Commandments, I would like to teach you a way that you can memorize and remember them at any time. All you're going to need are two everyday objects that you always carry around in your pockets: your hands. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the appropriate number of fingers for each commandment, and that will help us to remember what the commandment is about so that it builds a peg on which we can hang the rest of the text of the commandment. So I'm going to go through it once, and then I will explain each piece in detail, and then I'll go through it again. The Ten Commandments. First, the first commandment, you shall have no other gods. The second commandment, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. The third commandment, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. The fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother. The fifth commandment, you shall not murder. The sixth commandment, you shall not commit adultery. The seventh commandment, you shall not steal. The eighth commandment, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. The ninth commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. The 10th commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. So as you can see, for each of the commandments, we used a number of fingers and had some sort of action to remind us what it relates to. So here are each of them in detail with a little explanation. The first commandment, we hold up one finger. That reminds us there is only one God. And so we say, you shall have no other gods. The second commandment, hold up two fingers, and I place those two fingers over my mouth as though I am censoring myself to remind myself not to speak God's name in vain. And so we say, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. Now, if you'd like to use this commandment with the old style language, you shall not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, you can hold up two fingers like this and remember that it looks kind of like a V. For the third commandment, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. And here, I tap on my head as though I am trying to remember. The fourth commandment, honor your father and your mother. And here I just hold up four fingers. I kind of remember that there are four people in a what we might call an ideal nuclear family these days. Two parents, two children. And so we get one finger for each of them and for each of the parts of the phrase. Honor your father and your mother. The fifth commandment. And here we will take our hand and make it into a finger gun to remind ourselves not to murder. Alternatively, with small children, since they don't know about guns, sometimes I'll just take my fist and pound it on something, the table. Remember that in the explanation, Luther says that we should fear and love God so that we do not hurt or harm our neighbor in his body, but help and support him in every physical need. So, you shall not murder, or you shall not murder. The sixth commandment. This one's fun, you're going to remember it, and it's really cheesy. So dads, this is your dad joke for the day. You put your 5 fingers on top of your one finger and make a little tree. What kind of tree is this? It's not a baby tree, it's an adult tree. You shall not commit adultery. The seventh commandment. We make like we are stealing 2 fingers from the other hand, so you shall not steal. The eighth commandment. Once again, this one deals with saying things falsely or wrongly, and so we take 3 fingers and place them over our mouth and hold our other hand up as though we are taking an oath in court. You shall not bear false testimony against your neighbor. or you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor, depending on which version you like to say. Alternatively, if you also like the old school style of you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, then the 3 fingers look like a W to help you remember that as well. The 9th commandment. Here we're going to take both hands and form them together into a little house with a peak here and 2 walls. And then, so that we can note that it has 9 instead of just 8, we're going to stick up one thumb like a chimney. And with my kids, I usually go pink, because that makes them laugh and it helps you remember it. You've got 9, so the 9th commandment deals with our neighbor's house and coveting. So we say, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. And then finally, the 10th commandment uses all 10 fingers, and we put them together in this arrangement to remind us of the family according to the Bible. And in the ancient times, families were not just mother and father and children, but also included relatives and workers who lived in the household as well. The 10th commandment deals with all of that and other relationships, not just between people, but people and their animals or work implements, we might say. So we have the father and mother, husband and wife, linked together like this. So we say, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife. And then we simply go alternating sides, manservant or maidservant, ox or donkey, and that takes care of all of the human relationships and then work relationships. And then for the last 4 fingers, we say, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. And that just helps to round out using all the fingers. You don't have to do that. That's just the way I like to do it. And again, this reminds us that the 10th commandment is about relationships primarily, whereas the 9th commandment is about stuff, sort of immaterial or rather material possessions that you just sort of have and use. The 10th commandment is not just those, but ox and donkey are creatures that your neighbor would need a good relationship with in order to do the work that he or she needs to do. So, once again, going through it, here we go. Sometimes I'll note I also will start with my left hand counting. I didn't do it this time, but sometimes I'll start with my left hand counting, because then when I get to the 4th commandment, I've got my ring finger up. And so you can do that if you'd like. I'll do that this time. The 1st commandment, you shall have no other gods. The 2nd commandment, you shall not misuse the name of the Lord your God. The 3rd commandment, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. The 4th commandment, honor your father and your mother. The 5th commandment, you shall not murder. The 6th commandment, you shall not commit adultery. The 7th commandment, you shall not steal. The 8th commandment, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. The 9th commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's house. The 10th commandment, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. I hope that this video helps you to remember the 10 commandments so that you can think about them at any time of the day, and you can also remember what order they're in case someone like the pastor or an elder quizzes you, and you'll have them ready to go right in your pockets. Happy studying. The Lord be with you.